Good morning. Welcome to everyone who has joined us today for today's engagement session. My name is Wesley Ford and I'm a Community Services Officer at Newport City Homes. I'll be leading today's session and keeping everything on track. Before we begin, just to make you all aware, this session is being recorded. The recording will be made available on our website for residents who aren't able to attend today. You'll also receive a copy of the recording after today's session in case you'd like to check any of the information that you've heard today. Before we make a start, can I please ask that you do not put any personal information in the chat box. This is purely for data protection purposes. As many of you will know, in February, we held our very first online engagement sessions for residents and leaseholders in Gainsborough. Residents to come and talk to us about our work in Gainsborough Drive. In the sessions, we told you that we are looking at 3 options. This is something that we are going to look at in more detail today. We expect this session to last for the full hour, and we'll answer as many questions as we can and then collate the Q&As we have had for circulation. In this session, it's really important that everyone has the opportunity to share their views and provide feedback. Please be aware that some people may have different opinions to you, and we want to hear from as many of you as possible in order to share your views. In line with our community guidelines, please be respectful and use appropriate language, as this can be seen by the residents as offensive here today. Normally, we would want to be out and about in the local community, so you can speak to us face to face, but unfortunately at the moment, this is not possible due to COVID. So we've been trialing a new approach with these online sessions. We're asking that everyone keeps themselves on mute whilst we present the information to you. We really want to hear your views today. We're asking that you do this either by using the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand using the reactions box, we'll invite you to unmute yourself and ask you to then voice your query or ask your question to the project team. So I want to introduce you to the members of the project team who will be talking to you today. And firstly, we have Rachel.
Hello, I'm Rachel George and I'm the Head of Regeneration.
Thank you, Rachel.
Hi. I'm sorry.
Next up, we have Clea.
Hi, I'm Llyr Morris. I'm a Development Officer with Newport City Homes.
Thanks very much, Clea. And we also have Archie.
Hi everyone, I'm Archie. I'm an architectural assistant from Curler Trailhead Architecture, and we've been appointed by Newport City Homes to look at your site.
Thanks very much, Archie. And there are also some other members of the project team here today. They're here to listen to your feedback and help answer any of the questions which may come up later on in the session. So during today's session, our aims are to update you on the survey work we've been carrying out, share the views we have had from you about your home and the local area, talk through the options we have developed, ask you for your views, and answer any questions you have about our work. If you have any questions which aren't answered today, we'll also be sharing a feedback survey after the session, along with our contact details for you to contact us directly. This is focused on the work that we have been carrying out in your area over the past few months, and we really want this to be an interactive session. If you have any questions about Newport City Homes that aren't a part of this project, like questions about repairs or specific to your property, we'll share ways of which you can contact us at the end of today's session. I'm now going to hand over to Rachel.
Hi, so good morning. Thank you very much for being with us today and sparing your time to join us on this session. We've been looking at your homes and your block because we think that they might need some investment in the future. One of the key issues that we've identified about your homes are layouts and fire safety aspects, which we will talk about in more detail as we go through. Also important to Newport City Homes is the World Government decarbonisation agenda, and so we're also looking at how to make our homes and your homes zero carbon in the future, and that's something else that we're looking at in this work and in this session. So that's a bit of a heads up for key things to look for as we go through, and I'll now pass you over to my colleague Llyr.
Thanks, Rachel. So as we previously mentioned, we've carried out different types of surveys to understand the issues in your block and to help us develop our options. So the newsletter you received included the types of surveys that we've carried out in your area. So based on this survey information, the main issues we identified are that the layouts don't currently meet the fire and building regulations. This is because when in the bedroom, the exit is through the living room, which is considered a high risk location for fires. So our sprinkler program improves the existing arrangement. However, we are looking at whether we can really solve the problem by looking at other options for your homes. In addition, the current energy ratings for the blocks is EPC-C, which means that thermal performance may not retain heating as effectively as they could. We are also identified there is a need locally for 1 and 2 bedroom homes. We have incorporated all of these findings into our options appraisals process. So since the original online engagement session in February, you made us aware that there are mixed feelings about your homes and the local area. 20% of you told us that you're either very or extremely satisfied with your home, with 50% of you not being satisfied with your home at all. The main dislikes included the general condition of your home, damp, lack of space, and small kitchens. So now to discuss through the options in greater detail, I'll pass you over to Simon from CLTH Architects.
Hi everyone. Unfortunately, Simon can't be here today, but I'll cover for him. Thank you, Claire, and thank you again for all joining us to hear about the work we've been doing on this site on Gainsborough Drive. I'm just going to talk you through some of the work we've been doing over the past month or two. So just starting off looking at an aerial view of the site. Hopefully you can get your bearings here. We're just looking from sort of the southwest looking north. So Gainsborough Drive is running along the top left of this drawing. And then there's the mature trees which face onto the street. And as you come up the slope, there's one easy form block with 12 flats in it, and that's what we've been looking at. And we'll be coming back to this drawing as we look through the different options and potentially progressing with. So on to the next slide, please, Jonathan. So sort of based on the information from the surveys we've received, we've decided with Newport City Homes that there are sort of 3 options for the future of the easy form block and the site. It's worth highlighting that no decisions have been made yet, and the purpose of this session is to create a conversation with the residents and the locals. So please give us any comments you have, as we will try and incorporate as much feedback as possible. So option 1 is take no action, option 2 is refurbishment, and option 3 is rebuild, and I'll go into them in more detail now. So this is option 1, where we'll be looking to sort of carry on with the day-to-day repairs, and in this situation, Newport City Homes will stick to a normal planned maintenance schedule with the cyclical maintenance work only. We'd like to know what's working well with your block and what may not be working so well in a bit more detail. So I'm going to hand you over to Wes, and he can ask you about your thoughts on the block and the current maintenance schedule. And please do give your feedback if you're watching back on the recording as well.
Thanks very much, Archie. So if any of you in attendance today have got any thoughts, feedback, comments, please, I really do encourage you to place them into the chat box or use the raise your hand function and ask your question directly to the project team. I really do encourage you to get involved. Obviously, we're taking all of your views and your comments and your feedback very seriously, and obviously everything will be taken into account. So I really do encourage you to please get involved and have your say, provide your feedback, ask your questions, and use the chat function or use the raise your hand option. So I'm just going to ask my colleague, John. John, do we have anyone who has raised their hand?
Not as yet, Wes. We have one resident with us at the moment, I believe, but they're not indicating they wish to ask a question at this time. Okay,
no problem at all. Thanks, John. Is there anything in the chat box as well, Clear or John? Anything at all?
No, nothing at the moment, Wes.
Okay, no problem. So I think we've just had a comment that's just come in the chat box. Leah, if I go back to you for a second, if you want to take a look at that for us.
Yeah, so there's a comment just come in, so that there's too much wrong with these flats to leave them alone. So in terms of the take no action, it's clear that the resident feels that some works needs to be done to them and not leave them alone. So does anyone want to address that? Or I think it's more of a statement really, isn't it? So.
Thank you very much for that. Into the chat box, obviously, like I said, we're recording everything that we possibly can, and obviously everyone's views and opinions will be taken into account. So I really appreciate you taking the time to comment into the chat box with your thoughts and your feedback. Clea, I think we do have something else in the chat box now as well.
Yeah, it's another statement just saying that the work needs to be done to the kitchen. So that's noted. It's something that we're aware of. So yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Thanks very much, Leah. Okay then, so if I hand back over to Archie then to take us through option 2. Archie, the stage is yours.
Thank you. I think that leads us quite nicely on to the next section, really, where we're going to take a look at your homes in a bit more detail. So this environmental section highlights some of the reasons refurbishment may be necessary in order to meet net zero ratings and to improve the quality of your homes. So due to the existing construction type, the buildings leak out quite a lot of heat. You can see the red from the arrows leaking out of the building to the blue. So when you're heating your houses up, a lot of that energy is wasted and it's leaving, especially through the roof and the loft, and also through the windows with drafts. And you can see at the bottom there a blue arrow coming in and on each story, but there's no insulation break between the outside and inside, so cold energy is leaking into the building and making your flats a bit colder. So the main goals of the refurbishment option will be to improve the thermal efficiency to reach the net zero home standard, and this can be done by upgrading the insulation, replacing the windows, replacing the existing gas heating with electric heating sources, and adding solar panels on the roof. We could also be looking at increasing the size of the flats via internal alterations, such as building over the existing balconies and adding larger balconies. We'd be looking to update the external finishes and potentially reconfiguring the bin stores if that's something you're interested in, and also to make landscape improvements around the block. So yeah, I think one of the main changes would be adding this sort of warm fleece around the building, which you can see on this environmental section again in green. In the loft space, we've added 2 layers of insulation, and on the line of the windows, there would be new triple glazed windows with new insulation and potentially a new finish on the outside of the building. And we'd be interested to hear your views on the external finish. We have had some thoughts, but we'll be looking at that in a bit more detail. Another option could be to add these large south-facing balconies, which would be a nice space to sit in the sun, but also would create solar shading in the summer. And I think that's about it from that section. So maybe go on to the next slide, please, where we have also looked at the internal configuration of the block in plan. So we think, as Clea said, it doesn't quite meet the space standards and also the fire regulations. So there may be some ways to reconfigure your home to improve them. We could build over the existing balcony space, and this is shown in blue in the next slide. So this will increase the total area of the flat. And on the next slide, we could create a central escape corridor to a living room at the end of the flat, which would be dual aspect in the middle and triple aspect on the ends. And we could also have then 2 bedrooms in the middle of the flat with a large balcony on the external, which is shown on the next slide. I'm not sure if that's coming through on everyone else's screens, but some of the colours haven't come through correctly on mine, but that's the sort of general idea, where we have new south-facing balconies and a dual aspect living room. So let's look at the plan in a bit more detail of what we've worked into, and this is just an option for now, but you can see in black the existing walls, and in a sort of light grey the new walls. So we've knocked out some of the walls in the inside and created new balconies and gardens on the south. And this is just an option, so we'd be really interested in getting your feedback on it. And we have proposed potentially having the bins and bikes on the north side of the building, so they can be easily accessed from the flats, and also creates nice views out down over the trees. if the old bins and bikes are not there. But yeah, we'd be interested to hear what you think of your current bin stores and whether you'd prefer to have new ones. And on the next slide, we have the sort of current appearance of the elevation of your block. And although nothing has been decided yet, on the next slide, we have one potential option for the refurbishment option, which would be with new brickwork replacing the old render. The roof could be replaced with a new zinc roof with solar panels on top. We could have new canopies with balconies, as I spoke about before, and these would have a planting zone at the front and planting boxes built into the balconies. And the new bin and bike stores shown on the ends of the block here. But yeah, we'd be really interested to hear your feedback on this initial idea and where we could go with it, really. So if we go to the next slide, we come back to the aerial view, which shows what this refurbished block could look like from above. Essentially, we're focusing on maximizing what's already there, but providing better views out to the mature trees. And the blocks will have a new and improved look too, with the addition of the new balconies, roofs and solar panels. We really appreciate your feedback now, and especially on the balconies, the brick cladding and the alterations to your flat. So I'm going to hand over to Rachel now, who will talk you through how this option may impact the residents of the block.
Thank you very much, Archie. So in terms of the refurbishment option, this could have for residents, for our tenants, it would mean that we would look to see if we could carry out the refurbishment works while you were still living in your own home. That would be our preferred option for you. If it isn't possible, it may mean that we need to house you, and we would need to consider whether that would be on a permanent basis or on a temporary basis. It may mean that the best thing to do is to rehouse you once, and that may mean moving you away from the block, or it may mean that it's on a temporary basis. We are not sure at the present time. If you're a leaseholder, we tend to carry out refurbishment works to leasehold properties. But if you wanted to opt into the works, that might be something that we could look at doing. There may be some works that we would definitely need to talk to you about doing because they would impact on you, such as roof works or the cladding that we've been talking about, and they would need more detailed conversations with leaseholders. So in terms of the options for tenants and leaseholders, if this option were taken forward, we'd need to talk to you in more detail about the exact works that we'd be looking at doing, and how this would impact on you, and find out about your own individual circumstances. Over to Wes now.
Thanks very much, Archie. Some great information on show there for the people in attendance. So again, I'd really encourage you to ask your questions or get involved, share your views, provide feedback. If you want to pop anything into the chat box, I really do encourage you to do so. As I said, we're looking at this very closely. Everyone's views and opinions will be taken into account and taken very seriously by NCH. So yeah, if you want to ask your questions, please ask away. Really do encourage it. Also, the raise your hand option is available. If you want to ask a question directly to the project team, that can also we can also do that. We'll request you to unmute, and you'll be able to ask them directly. So I'm just going to pop over to John firstly. John, has anyone used the raise your hand option today?
No one's raised their hands, though I think there have been some comments in chat.
Okay, thanks very much, John. Over to Leah.
Hi, Wes. Yeah, so we've had a few questions come in. So the first question was to do with the impact on the ground floor flats. So if someone could step in and clarify what's happening there, that'd be great. Whether that's Archie or Rachel, I'm not sure who's best to speak there.
Maybe Archie, if you could revisit the potential works of the ground floor flats. I think that's what the comment is relating to, clarity over what works would happen to them.
Yes, of course. Maybe we could go back to the plan. I think it's a few slides back. Yes, this one. Sorry, I'm just trying to read the comments now. I've just opened it up. The balconies would be on the opposite side. Yes. Currently they're on the north side.
Archie, Actually, so it's the comment above that. So it's about, what about the ground floor flats? That's the one that, just for the time being.
Yes, so this is actually a ground floor plan. In this option, we have provided 2 wheelchair accessible flats on the ends and a plant room on the south side here. So this is only a 1-bedroom flat. And on the upper floors, there would all be 2-bedroom flats, as the centre ones show. Yeah.
Just to add to the at this point, these are just proposals to see what we could do, and one of the things that we've identified for this area is that there are a need for different property types, and these flats are all 2-bed. It would need further discussion with the people affected, and if they're leasehold properties, for example, it may be that we don't look to carry out this particular option on the ground floor for any leasehold properties. But if they were occupied by tenants, it may be that we could have a conversation with the tenants affected to see about whether they could be rehoused so that we could carry out this option. But that would be for further discussion with the people involved.
Thanks very much, Rachel and Archie. Clea, do we have any more questions in the chat box?
Yeah, so the second question is to do with the location of the balconies and whether they're changing sides. So yeah, Archie, I believe they do change size because we incorporate the balconies to the front and then they're relocated to the rear, I believe. So if Archie, you could confirm that really.
That is correct, yeah, and obviously this is just an option, so we'd be interested to get your feedback on that. They could be on the north side if we wanted, but we think it might be quite nice to have nice south-facing balconies where you get the sun. And just to reiterate a bit about the wheelchair accessible flats, it's just on the ground floor. They could be wheelchair accessible, and we could also do a 2-bed flat and have the plant situated somewhere, maybe outside of the building if possible, or relocate it somewhere else. So this is just an option, just showcasing what could fit in the flat.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Clea and Archie. Any more questions in the chat box for us?
Yeah, so there's another question about why the kitchen and lounge are all in one. So we've gone for an open plan kitchen living arrangement. And I believe that's to do with reaching Welsh Government space standards, which is one of the requirements we need. And also we think it makes it a pleasant place for you to live. It's a nice open space. But if anyone else has got anything to add to that, please jump in now.
Nothing from me. I think that covers it. Thank you, Greg.
Okay.
I'd just like to pick up on the comment about losing our lovely views, and I think the reason I think this is in relation to the location of the balconies. And what Archie said is that relocating them to the south might be better for people's enjoyment of the balconies because of getting sunlight rather than having them in the north. If there was a lot of feeling actually that would mean losing views and people would rather keep the balconies where they are, definitely something also that we could look at. We're not trying to take away people's views, we're actually trying to improve the situation.
Yeah.
And then to clarify the open plan, it's been identified that people are not satisfied with their kitchens. So one way of increasing the space and the enjoyment of the kitchens is to make them open plan. But I've realised that some people like open plan and some people don't. But it could be beneficial for the size and the layout. So it's something that we would look at, but obviously want your views on.
Thanks very much, Rach, and Clea as well, and Archie for answering those questions. Anything else? You can answer maybe one or two more in the chat box, and then move on to the next stage. And then any questions that aren't answered, we can compile together and get those answered. But are there any more one or two questions in the chat box before we move on?
I think we've covered them because the other questions are, will they still be 2-bedrooms? So the majority will be 2-bedroom, but at the moment, this option is showing that 2 flats will be going down to 1-bedroom flats. But again, that's not set in stone. That this is just an option to get your feedback. And then the other question, what if we cannot access second floor? I thought the ground floor would be for disabled people. So I think actually the ground floor flats are disabled access, so there'll be level access to these properties. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yes, so the ground floor will be for them. Will be DDA compliant, which is the standard, I believe. So.
Thanks very much, Leah. Okay, so I'm going to hand back over to Archie now, who will take us through option 3. Over to you, Archie.
Yes, and this is obviously something we've looked at in a bit of detail, but having sort of really analysed the site, I think we've come to the agreement that constraints such as the mature trees and the underground utilities and overlooking with the neighbours, and most importantly, I think the steeply sloping nature of the site mean building anywhere other than on the existing site of the block is not really possible. This option would obviously have the most impact on residents, but we have explored it just to see if it could create a positive outcome for the residents in the future. So it would result in new ultra low energy 3-storey flats, and we'd have to provide integrated sustainable drainage systems, so, which would have to be approved by the site's approving body, SAB. But I think this might be quite tricky on this site because you have to have a kind of flat area at the lowest point of the site, and the lowest point of the site is at the bottom of Gainsborough Drive, where it slopes very steeply and meets the street. So it's going to be quite tricky to have some sustainable drainage on this site. So if we go on to the next slide, I think we've sort of shown what we could do here, and essentially it is just 12 new flats on the same footprint of the existing building with inset balconies, so it wouldn't be extending out of the footprint on this option. I think in this scenario there'd be one bed flats and potentially 2 bed flats on the upper floors if there's space to use up the core area. And then on the last slide here we have how these homes could look. I'm not going to spend too long on this because I think we're not sure this option is entirely viable. However, we wanted to show you it, and just to show that we considered it, and we'd welcome any feedback on this option. I think that's about it from me on that option for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Archie. So just
Shall I step in here, Wes?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Thanks. Okay, all right, brilliant. So just to talk about this option, if we were to look at this and demolishing the existing block and then building new homes, obviously we would need to be talking to tenants about rehousing you. We've outlined in the newsletter how that would work and what our priorities would be. We would have individual conversations with you about your housing need to move somewhere in the local area. There were other new homes that were being built in the local area at the same time. We would want you to be benefiting from that process if at all possible. With any leaseholders, we would need to be talking to you about buying back your home so that we can facilitate this happening. Go into any detail that you need if you're concerned about this, or if you want to talk about the process, then by all means do get in touch with us using the contact details on your newsletter and through this session. And over to Wes.
Thanks very much, Ray. And Archie, some really useful information provided there. So again, if you've got any questions, views, opinions on option 3, I really do encourage you to get involved. Please fire away into the chat box or use the raise your hand option to ask a member of the project team directly your question. I really do encourage you to get involved if you can, or as I said, you know, we're taking everything into account and all of your views matter. We really, really do encourage you to have your say, because we are taking obviously your comments very seriously. So please do get involved, use the chat section or use the raise your hand option to ask a member of the team directly. John, do we have anyone in the raise your hand section of the?
No, we don't, Wes.
Thanks very much, John. Okay, Clea, do we have anyone in the chat section with any questions that we can answer?
Yeah, a few questions. So what if we really like the place we would be moving to? So Rachel, do you want to answer that? So I think it's to do with if we did go for the regeneration option, so this rebuild option, and they were moved elsewhere and they liked it, I don't think we would then look to relocate them back to this. Would we? We'd look to keep them where they were.
If we were to, yeah, sorry. So if we were going to, if we needed to move you somewhere else and rehouse you as part of this process, we would look to rehouse you permanently so that you only moved once. And so that place would meet your needs, and we'd have talked to you about it, and hopefully you would really like it. So yeah, we wouldn't expect you or want you to move again after that.
Okay, and I think that's linked to the second question then. So what help would be available with moving?
Okay, so there's if we were to move you because of a process like this and we were rebuilding the homes, you would be entitled to a statutory compensation payment. I think the figure's actually in the newsletter. It's around £6,000. So you'd be entitled to that. We would give you help and support through a dedicated person from Newport City Homes who would work with you on the process and how that would actually work. And you would have additional costs met for your actual moving process as well. So you would receive some compensation, you would receive support and help through the moving process, and to cover your costs of moving.
Okay, great. And there's another couple of questions. So if we move back, will we get our same flat? Sorry. I don't think we know that at the moment, do we, Rachel? So it's still up in the air. But as soon as we've got more direction from the board, I'm sure we'll be able to talk to you again and bottom that out. But at the moment, we don't know, sorry. And would you have to arrange our own move? So would we have to arrange our own move, or would Newport City Homes help them? So anyone want to jump in? I think we would help, but Rachel, if you want to clarify.
You wouldn't. Yeah, you wouldn't need to arrange your own move if we were looking at the refurbishment option and we needed again to move people while we did it. It would be something that was arranged by Newport City Homes, and you would have support you would have support through that process from one of our officers who would help with all of that. Yes.
Thanks very much, some really useful information there for the resident with the questions. Here, is there anything else that's in there that needs to be answered on?
No, nothing at the moment. Thank you, Wes.
Brilliant. Okay, then I'm going to hand over to Rachel. Rachel, all yours.
Okay, so thanks, Wes. So for the next stages, what's happening is that we are going through this process at the moment with you, and we've got the surveys that are out that we're asking people to complete. By all means, if you can, encourage your neighbours and other people in your block to answer the survey, because the feedback that we get through it and from this session is really important. We encourage them to watch this session and get in touch with us if they've got any questions or queries, and hopefully respond to our survey. The information that we get from the survey will be fed back as part of our options appraisal, which is due to be considered by our board in July. We're expecting that our board will give us some direction in terms of a preferred option that we will come back and talk to you about. And we're expecting that to be in August or September. The board meeting is towards the end of July, so we just want to make sure that we've said August and September to get back to you, just to make sure that we can do as we say, and can get back to you in those reasonable timescales. So it will be as soon as possible within that time, and then depending on that option that's taken forward, we'll be talking to you then about any next steps. So please do get in touch with us with any questions or through the surveys.
Thanks very much, Rach. So again, as Rachel said, please do get in touch with us. Any questions that you do have, feedback, anything at all, please do get in touch with us. We will be sharing our contact details shortly. At this stage in the presentation, we set out a little bit of time to just answer your questions and take any feedback or any queries that you may have. So I'm just going to go back over to John. John, do we have anyone in the raised your hand section?
We do not, Wes.
No. Okay. And Leah, how is the chat box looking?
Yeah, nothing extra from the chat.
Nothing at this stage. Again, like I said, you don't just have to wait for these sessions to be able to provide any feedback or ask any questions. We will share our contact details. They will come on screen shortly, but I really do encourage residents and leaseholders to get involved and to share your views and your opinions. We are taking it very seriously. We are taking it on board. It will be looked at closely, and we will consider every avenue possible. So please do get involved. I really do encourage you to do so. So moving on, we're coming to the end of today's session. So just some final information for you guys and girls before we finish. We really hope that you found this session helpful to understand the work that we're carrying out. And I'd just really like to thank you for taking the time to come to the session today and provide your feedback on your home and your local area. We really do appreciate your time. As we discussed earlier, we will also share this information with the Newport City Homes Board when they consider how we should proceed with work in your area. The recording of today's session will be available on our website in the next few days if you'd like to go back and listen again. And you should also receive a copy by email also. So if at any stage, if you don't receive a copy, please do get in touch and we can arrange that to be sent out to you pretty much straight away. In the meantime, if you'd like to get in touch with us, please use the contact details listed on the leaflet or that are noted on the screen now. So I'm just going to take you through those details. So to stay in touch, my name is Wesley Ford, Community Services Officer at Newport City Homes, and my contact details are as follows: 01633 227 614. Also, my colleague Kelsey Cantello. She's Community Services Officer also at Newport City Homes. Contact number 01633 227 637. If you'd prefer to email us, that's not a problem at all. Also, we do have a community inbox, which is as follows: community@newportcityhomes.com, all lowercase. That is community@newportcityhomes.com. You'll be able to contact us via email using that address. And obviously, if you've got any questions or any feedback, please do get in touch via any of those methods. So just before we finish, we'd like to understand if this session has been useful for you. And if you'd like to attend online sessions in the future, you'll see 2 questions on your screen shortly. Please select one of the options to answer it. Okay. So if you can just answer the 2 questions in the poll, we would really appreciate your feedback. First question, how useful did you find the session? And second question, would you be interested in attending future sessions? So if you could just answer that for us, we would really appreciate that. If you could do that for us, that would be great.
Wes, I think all residents on the call have answered the evaluation questions now.
Fantastic.
So I'm just gonna end the poll.
Thank you very much, John. Okay, so that's it from us for this session. Thanks again for taking the time to join us today. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate your views, your feedback, and as I said, we're really taking everything you say on board. As I said, everything will be considered. Any questions that you do have, we'll answer them as best as we can. You'll be able to contact us after the session following with the contact details we've provided. I really do encourage you, if you do have any feedback, any questions, please contact us. So we look forward to speaking with you again soon when we have more updates to share. So please, once again, thank you very much for attending today. Please stay safe and take care and have a great weekend.